Welcome. I can see you coming in. Great to see so many familiar faces. Hi, Rabbi Savana. We're happy that you're here with us. Lane, Iris, a lot of familiar faces. So we're soon going to be also live in Facebook, just for you to know. We'll start in just a moment after we see some more faces in our room. Okay. This meeting will be a live stream if you're only joining us now, and we'll be recording just for you to all know. So we're live on Facebook, so hello everyone. We're giving it one more second before we start, just to allow our latecomers here to make sure we all get this opportunity together. Okay. I'm so excited to see so many familiar faces here in Zoom, and also excited that we'll be live on Facebook. So if you're joining us on Facebook, please let us know who you are and where you're from, and we're excited to have you all today. So I want to say good afternoon to all of you that are joining us from close and far, from all around, from the Upper East Side, from New York, from Israel, and from all around the world. I want to start by welcoming you and thanking all the organizations that made today's possible. First of all, I want to thank Central Synagogue that is hosting us today, and Rabbi Berman for your leadership today, and Jake from our technical support, of course. I want to thank our dear partners from Park Avenue Synagogue, from the 92nd Y, from the Jewish Agency, and of course the UJA Federation of New York. So to those of you that don't yet know me, I'm Karin Lexiel, and I've been serving you as the Upper East Side Shlicha, emissary from Israel, for the last 4 years. On this joint stage, once a month, we meet to talk about what matters to us in our connection to each other and the different ways that we can influence a better future for all. We bring different speakers, usually from Israel, the great advantages of the Zoom time. And so we want to welcome our speaker from Israel today. Moran Samuel is here joining us. Erev Tov, Moran. Thank you for joining us.
Erev Tov. Good evening, everybody.
Okay, so in just a moment we'll start, and Moran will start this conversation, but I want to share with you that today's event comes in very great timing. As many of you might have read the recent headlines in today's newspaper, the US plans of a diplomatic boycott in China. We know that we're just we're in the time of the Olympic fevers, just a little bit after the Summer Olympics, and turned to our Winter Olympics in just 60 days from now. And the Olympics tend to draw a lot of attention in different way. There are also great opportunities for us to shape the public agenda and focus on issues that matters for us and that we want to push forward. Issues such as women representation, mental health, and an inclusive society. So it's great timing, and we're so excited to host here on our stage our speaker for today, Moran Samuels. She's a busy speaker, just 2 months before the Olympic, and she's a remarkable athlete and mom. She's a Paralympic basketball and rower medalist. I could continue and tell you a lot about her bio, but she's asked me not to, because on today's session, Moran won't talk about the subjects that matters to her, but she'll intimately share with us her story in her voice. So I will let her start this conversation, and like always, we'll have time to ask questions and get to a discourse between us shortly. So Moran, welcome. Thank you for joining us, and please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Karin, and hi, everybody. I'm really excited. And yes, there are some advantages for Zoom because I guess probably in the next couple of years, that will be our only way to get together and for me to share with you my story. And I want to share with you my story, not because I think it's unique. I think that if you come to our Paralympic team, you would find many, many amazing stories, just because I think that difficulties and challenging times in life are relevant for everybody. We all go through them. We all need to find our inner strength to overcome different challenges that we face. And I like to say that we all have this metaphorical wheelchair by our bed when we wake up in the morning in sometimes in life, and it's not about what happened or the reason that the chair exists. It's how we get out of bed and take the next positive action or something we can do about it. So I will share with you also a presentation just so you for you to get to know me better, and you can't see my wheelchair now. It's right there. I'm sitting on it, probably much more comfortable than all the chairs you choose to sit on today because it was made especially for me. Let's see. So as Karine mentioned, I'm a Paralympic champion. I won the silver medal in the Tokyo Games recently. I have the bronze medal from the Paralympic Games in Rio. And I play wheelchair basketball in Israel. But I didn't start my life with any kind of physical disability. I actually, from a very young age, was a basketball player. I started playing basketball in the north part of Israel, all the way up in the north in a small town called Carmiel. Now, when I was 9 years old, my best friend decided to sign up for basketball, and I came to the community center after he signed up, and I said, well, I want to play too. And they said, sorry, you're a girl. Well, thank you for the new information. What do you mean? And they didn't want to let me join the team just because I was a girl. Luckily, I was born to a very, very stubborn mother that she couldn't even imagine a world where her daughter wants to play basketball and she can't because she's a girl. And she insisted, and they let me, come to a first kind of we're gonna let her try. And I came to my first session. I was looking left and right, and they were all boys, but I discovered I'm about a head taller than all of them. So for me, starting my basketball career in the boys team was just an advantage. I was faster and stronger and taller than all of them. Soon it became from something nice to do in the afternoon to my dream, to that thing that you want to be when you grow up. I started representing Israel in the national team when I was about 15 and a half. I played professional basketball since high school. I joined the army in a special program for elite athletes. So I was serving the Air Force, but I was the captain of the under 20 national team and still playing professional, and also coaching basketball, just to take all those amazing values, qualities, and tools that I got from sport, I wanted to transfer to others. If you have met me that age and opened up my chest, you wouldn't find an anatomical heart. My heart was round and orange, and it was bouncing up and down my chest. Just to make it tangible for you, how my life changed dramatically one morning. That as a basketball player, I woke up, I was 24 years old, and 2 hours later, I was completely paralyzed from the chest down. Just like that. Evening before I play basketball, I wake up in the morning, I feel this really weird back pain and difficulty breathing. I didn't know what's going on. And after about 1 hour of struggling, I said, okay, I'm going to call an ambulance. And by the time they arrived, I couldn't get out of bed by myself. They had to carry me, put me in the ambulance. And on the way to the hospital, I realized I cannot move my legs. I mean, nothing moved. And I was trying to kind of feel my legs, and I didn't feel my legs anymore. I didn't know what's happening. It was a nightmare. It was really moments of horror. And I got to the hospital, and they realized I suffered a really rare condition called spinal stroke. A blood vessel just exploded. It was like a ticking bomb in my body that I didn't know existed. And that morning, at the age of 24, when I'm in the top of my career, my basketball career, I'm not just a basketball player. I'm already a student on my second year of my bachelor degree in physical therapy. I mean, come on, how much irony in one story, you know? And I have to go through a long back surgery. And when I wake up the next morning after that surgery, I realized it was a success because now I was only paralyzed in 45% of my body. But I also realized that I'm going to wake up to a completely new reality, that life as I knew it is over. Actually, I felt life is over. It was so hard to try and understand, how am I going to live my life without my full body? That body that I used so many times to do all the things that I love doing, to make my dreams come true, professionally as a basketball player and also as a person that wanted to be working with people with disabilities. So it was devastating. And I want to talk to you about those moments in life where you feel that you don't want to get out of bed, that you feel sorry for yourself, and how can you take everything in that moment, take all the powers inside of you to actually get out of bed. And I went through a journey that I call today a journey of small victories, because I believe that if we want to make the big ones, we have to start small. A small victory is that moment in time where all you wanted to do is give up and you didn't. But how do you do it? How do you go from feeling sorry for yourself to actually fighting to take the next positive action or mental? And I have 3 rules. My first rule is to understand that I own my own strength. And if you ever try to help a person that don't want to help themselves, you know what I'm talking about. It's impossible. And realizing that this deep pit is mine, and if I will take the right steps to get out of it, like to climb up, then all the support that I get, all the people around me that love me, and my family was by my bed, and my friends. But I needed to make that switch and realize that I own my own strength. The second step was to change the way that I talk to myself, because lying in bed and thinking life is over left me with no hope. But once you change the way you talk to yourself, and the way that we speak to ourselves changed everything. It helps us control our emotions. It helps us to motivate ourselves for actions. And saying life isn't over, or life as I knew it might be over, but I'm still here, helped me to gain hope again that something good is going to happen. And believe me, in the beginning, that dark tunnel or that famous light everybody talked about, I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, but I decided to keep on going. And the third rule is to have faith in the long journey, because no one can guarantee a result, not in sport, not in school, not in business. You can work really hard for something, but not gain exactly the result you were aiming for. But concentrating on the journey, on every step you take, will make it more possible for you to get the result you want. I had to go through a long rehabilitation. It was not easy understanding how am I going to live life in a wheelchair? How do you get dressed in the morning? At the beginning, it took me about 4 hours, and I had to work really hard to be independent. But today it takes me about an hour and a half, like all ordinary average women, right? And being in a hospital, away from family, away from friends, concentrating only on my physical, at least at the beginning, on my physical healing, was really, really hard. But all those small moments where I decided not to give up, when I realized that I have to do it, I have to own my strength, I have to talk positive to myself, were my way to get through that journey in rehabilitation. When I got out of the hospital and back to my life, everybody expected me to play basketball again or do any kind of sport, but I went back to school. I finished a bachelor in physical therapy and a master in child development, and I started working with children and infants with disabilities. And it took me about 3 years to understand that the pain that I feel in my chest is that pain of losing what I always loved doing, is being an athlete. So 3 years after my rehabilitation, 3 years that I avoided completely anything that has to do with sport, I get a phone call and they are explaining that they are rebuilding the women national team in wheelchair basketball and they want me to join. And I hesitated for a second maybe, but then I realized that just like in basketball, if I'm not going to take this shot, for sure I'm going to miss. And if we let the fear of failure stand between us and what we still want to do, if we let any kind of fear stand between our goals, our dreams, to the next step we can take, then we will never get to the point we want where we feel happy about our lives. And I went back to sport. And actually, I gave myself a present on the day of my birthday. I took the car. I drove about 2 hours. And when I got to the basketball court, and there was, the smell of the gym, the ball, the rim, I just fell in love again. As romantic as you can imagine, with the slow motion and the music in the background, I fell in love again. And I realized something very important. When the physical disability becomes an ability, it's easier to accept it. We need to live life from a point where we feel able. We need to erase the dis of disability. And the only way to do it is by doing what we love and what we know we're good at. Sometimes we are in a situation in life where everything feels that it's not working the way we wanted. But if we have at least one area in life where we feel in control, where we are doing something we love, we can handle all the rest. And for me, that was basketball, going back to being an athlete again, where I felt the most appreciated and able in my life. So now it was from the height of the wheelchair, but it was the same passion, the same love, and the same motivation that I felt all my life towards something. It didn't take me long to become the captain of the Israeli national team. Twice in my career, I was chosen to be one of the 5 best players in Europe. And I play in the men team of Bet Halochem Tel Aviv. It's the home for the veterans. It's amazing center, sports center, culture, and everything actually. There are 4 big centers in Israel that are all dedicated to soldiers that were injured during their army service. If you've ever visited, you know what I'm talking about. If not, next time you come to Israel, you have to see it because it's unique. There is nowhere around the world this amazing project that allows people that serve the country and got injured, sometimes badly, to recover, to not just to go through a rehabilitation, which they did in the hospital, actually go back to a full life. So I'm part of the men team of Bet Halochem Tel Aviv, many championships, and even playing in the EuroLeague, really amazing. But the women national team was not strong enough, and I had a dream, a new dream. I wanted to get to the Paralympic Games. And they said, okay, you want to get to the Paralympic Games, you need to sit in a boat. I call my talk Take a Step because I believe that's the only way. If you stand behind a marked line on the floor and you scream on the top of your lungs, I want to take a step, I want to cross this line, people will laugh at you, will tell you, what are you doing? Just take a step, the line is right there. But sometimes this is what we do. We sit on our couch or lay in bed or with a coffee with a friend, and we start to say, oh, how I want to do this or that. starting Monday, here it's Sunday, but I guess you will say, starting Monday, I will, and nothing happens. Now, when we were about 12 months, we all did this amazing, amazing stage in life where we started walking. Now, I've never met a 12 months old baby sitting on the couch screaming, Mommy, next week I will take my first step, I promise. But we all see them take that step and fall and take another 2 steps and fall. And this is life. And I'm not trying to simplify life just, to the point where we were 12 months. But the main difference between this baby and who we are today is that what we carry on our back, and it's heavy because it's full with excuses and why not. And if you really want something, the right question to ask is, why should I? And just go for it, because every step you take will make it easier for you to take the next step, but you have to start. So they said the only way for me to get to the Paralympic Games is an individual sport, and they offered power rowing. Now, the only place I ever loved water was in the shower and hot. I've never thought I will ever play any sport that has to do anything with water. I never liked swimming or boats or whatever. But that dream was so strong that I was willing to try. And I started rowing in the small Yarkon River in Tel Aviv, which is about 3 kilometers long and maybe 3 boats wide. I couldn't believe that champions can come from that small stream. And when they taught me the technique, I was amazed. I mean, you put the blades in the water and you push forward, but the boat is going backward. I was hitting the banks and the docks in the Yarkon River, but I was on a mission to get to the Paralympic Games. I participated in London 2012 and was so close to winning a medal. I lost it by 1 second, which gave me the amazing motivation to go for another Paralympic game, because I said, well, a second away from bronze, it means I can do it. But if you need to have this moment where you try to enter the life of an elite athlete, going from one Paralympic Games to the next Paralympic game, those 4 years are so long. I'm talking about 30 hours a week, waking up, starting your day. Before you do anything else, you sit in your boat and you row for kilometers and kilometers. You have to work so hard in the gym, and I remind you, I sit in a wheelchair, I only use half of my body. So also the treatments in between, everything you need to do in your everyday life to make it happen is with so much determination that I think that, well, I guess everything you want to succeed in life, you have to put all the effort in and give 100%. But sports also takes a lot of energy from your body. And when you're using just half a body, it means you need to be very careful about how much you rest, how much you sleep, and how you eat. It's always true. But in the Paralympic community, it's even more important. So I was training towards Rio 2016. And on the way to getting there, I won a medal in every competition I participated. And on 2015, not only that I qualified to represent Israel on Rio Games, 2015, I was the world champion. And I want to show you that. This was an amazing moment. My parents are there in the crowd. You can't see them right now, but my mother is so excited. For a moment there, I thought she might need, like medical care or something. My father was standing, singing the Israeli anthem, the Hatikva. it was just really a rememberable and very, very exciting moment in my athletic career. And that got me to 2016 and to the Paralympic Games in Rio. Now, the amazing story is what you see here in the photo is me and my son. Listen, this little one was born 7 months prior to the Rio Games. But it's impossible to have a baby on the same year you're participating in the Paralympic Games. I was lucky to marry a woman. She was in charge on having that baby. I was in charge of winning a medal. And what's amazing about that story is that when he was born, it was February, 7 months, as I said, before the Paralympic Games in Rio, and we decided to name him Arad. I don't know how many of you speaks Hebrew, but Arad in Hebrew means bronze, okay? So when I won my bronze medal 7 months later, everybody made fun of us. They said, how did you name him Arad? I mean, come on, didn't you want to win the gold medal? And of course I did. But Arad is actually an acronym. It took us about 4 years to bring this amazing little one to the world. 4 years of fertility treatments. My wife wasn't able to conceive, and it was 4 years when I'm trying to, get myself to the Paralympic Games, winning medal on my journey, and at home, failure after failure after failure. This little one is number 36. It took 36 embryos to get this one to the world. And it was such a dissonance in my life. And we named him Arad because Arad stands for, in Hebrew, Emunah, Ratzon, Vederech. And in English, it's faith and will and a path. And without those, I'm not sure that medal on my chest was, I wouldn't win it, and he would not be here. He's almost 6 now. I only won the bronze medal in Rio, so I said, okay, Tokyo is my next mission, but if I want to win a medal in Tokyo or a different color, I need another child, right? We just need to work better on the name. So at 2017, I got pregnant, and when I was 9 weeks, about the second month, I won the silver medal in the World Rowing Championship in Florida. In April, I gave birth to this amazing little girl. And when she was 4.5 months, I participated in the World Championship in Bulgaria and won another silver medal. A year and 4 months later, at the summer of 2019, I won my medal again, and the slot, the qualification to represent Israel in the Tokyo 2020 Games. And then, as you all know, came COVID-19. And 6 months before the Games, everything stops. Now, there are 2 important questions. First, what is her name? Of course, did we name her Goldie or Silver or anything related to that? So no. We decided to name her Rom, which in Hebrew means the sky or as high as you can get. So I always said, okay, I will do the best I can, but I'm not going to give another child the color of a medal. It's not right. And the second question is, how do you train to the Paralympic Games when you don't really know that it's going to happen? Everything was canceled, all sport events. I find myself training in the basement of my apartment building while running a homeschooling program for my children. It was just unbelievable. I had to keep myself motivated even though I didn't know what will be the end point of this journey, if there will be Paralympic Games eventually. And I think that actually being able to train and being able to hold my loves for sport so strong helped me through that pandemic that kind of shake the whole world. It was a virtual earthquake, you know. And my children was there with me in that basement, watching me training day after day. I think that it was like every day was like bring your child to work day. And I really hope, I want to believe that what they got in that more over a year that they were at home is going to stay with them for life. So as I said at the beginning, after that long journey, eventually after 5 years, I got to Tokyo and I won the silver medal in the Tokyo Paralympic Games. The only thing I felt sorry for is that my family couldn't be there because of the restrictions. It was not the same Paralympic Games as we all imagined, but at least it happened. And that was the biggest win of sport over COVID. So what helped me through many of my challenging moments in life is my life philosophy. And I want to read it to you and then to kind of demonstrate with a video. And after that, I will be really, really happy to take all your questions. I know you must have a few about my life, whatever you feel comfortable to ask. You can use the chat and I will be happy to answer. You know, I'm not a shy person, so just feel free. I believe that if you look at an obstacle as an obstacle, there's a good chance it will knock you down. But if you look at an obstacle as a challenge, you will do your maximum to overcome it. And it's so much dependent on the way we interpret reality. Things can go wrong, bad things can happen in life, but the way we react to them will affect the result at the end. And if when a bad thing happens, we react in a bad and negative way, it will be very hard to get a different result. Probably it will be a negative one. But if even when negative things happen in life, we find a creative way to react to it, we might be able to change the outcome. So I want to prove it by showing you a short video clip of me winning my first gold medal ever in an international competition. It was in Italy, and I won my gold medal, and I was there waiting with my medal for the national anthem of Israel, for the Atikva. I want to show you what happened. So this is clearly not the national anthem of Israel, and I could have gone really, really angry, you know, and shout for anti-Israeli or whatever. But I wanted to hear it. That's what you want as an athlete. When you win the gold medal, you want to represent your country. You want to listen to the anthem. You want to see the flag rising up. And I stopped them and I said, well, listen, can't you look it up on YouTube? I was trying to spell Hatikva for them. And they couldn't find it. So I had only one option left. And thank you, Cynthia, for clapping. So instead of becoming the joke, becoming the embarrassment of the competition, I became the hero. And people who do not understand a word in Hebrew was standing in line in a queue, crying just to shake my head. And that was an amazing moment of victory, twice. Not just winning that medal, but being able to overcome that small challenge and make the outcome even better for myself and for my country. So I want to thank you so much for listening. I was trying to go through the gallery while I was speaking just to get to know you and see your faces. And I hope that you can all relate to at least one part in my story, that those times in life where you all faced something difficult, maybe there is something right now you are going through, and realize that the small wins that we make, those moments that we're not giving up, accumulate together and it makes us stronger. So I want you to look at this small child running and just look at his face and tell me, do you see a disability? Because I do not. And I think that if we want to be the better society, we just last week was the International Day of the Rights for People with Disabilities. And I think that if we want to become better as a society, we need to be more inclusive. We need to stop judging so much about what we see at the outside and let people the opportunity to show us what they have inside, because we are more alike than different. And I think that also this small child is telling us that many of the challenges, many of the limitations in life are the one that we set to ourselves. So don't. I don't know, it's always embarrassed. I feel embarrassed to talk about dreams, but I also think that with that naive approach to life, I can always think about the next best thing I can be. So don't be afraid to dream, but more importantly, do whatever you can to make your dreams come true. So thank you very much for listening, and I would love to answer your questions now.
Juan, first of all, in behalf of everyone that is here on the Zoom, and of course on our with our live speakers, with our live audience over Facebook that we don't necessarily see here, but we know that you are here with us. I want to say thank you for inspiring us and putting us in this mode. It's a great kind of a transition after Hanukkah and thinking of the ways that we can spread the light. We have a great question from Alden that is asking, first of all, that is thanking you for all your wisdom, but is asking you how can we create that accommodating world in your view? What is the ways that we can volunteer and donate and do more in order to be better allies?
So I think, first of all, in general, if I only talk about people with disabilities, we need to understand that today it's between 10 to 15% of the world population, right? Everywhere around the world. But to that mother or to that person in a wheelchair or with any kind of a disability, it becomes 100%, right? So if we want to make the world a better place for all of us, we need to be more aware, to look better in our environment and find the places that need our attention. Because sometimes we can look at a place and say, oh, but this is not very accessible, right? But we say it to ourselves, but we do nothing about it. But if when we see it, we do something about it, then we become part of the solution and not part of the problem. That's on one hand. Now, I think that volunteering is a privilege. For me, it was always very, very important. I give my talk here in Israel many times pro bono, in mental health institutions for young people, usually with young people, from different parts of the Israeli society. And I think that there is something that I like to call, we talk sometimes about the physical accessibility, how places need to be more physical, except like you can get into the community center with not a problem, but I think also it's the ability of people with disability to participate, to be part of society. And for that, we need the help of everybody, you know? And also, I wasn't sure if that question was in general, but if we are talking about Israel and how can we help in Israel, then I'm part of Access Israel, which is a nonprofit organization. I sit on the board of this organization, and I think that we are trying to make a difference in Israel, in the rights and the opportunities for people with disabilities. You know, I don't like the word equality. I feel that it's overrated because my needs are different than maybe some of you, you know, and your needs are maybe different than mine. And I like to talk about equal opportunities. Equal opportunities, that the door is open for everybody. Everybody can try and get inside. And if you're good enough, then you're in work, in school, in sport. And it's, you know, it's not ideal yet, but we are getting there. And all of you can be ambassador of that by being more aware of what's going on in your close to home environment, and ask more questions, and look for the closest place that you can do something good for others.
You really helped us today to kind of raise that awareness. And, you know, we sometimes need those reminders to just talk to each other and hear each other's stories to kind of get it back to our awareness and think what we could do. So not many may know, but this week we also celebrated the holiday of Eid el-Banat, which is the holiday of the women, the Banot, Chag HaBanot.
Always in Hanukkah.
Always in Hanukkah. On the seventh night of Hanukkah, we celebrate also women empowerment. It's a Jewish holiday from the North African Jews like me. And I want to ask you again, kind of on a point that you made. You talked about when you were only 9, you wanted to join a basketball club together with a friend, right? He was a male, and he had a room on the team, and you did not. So I want to ask you a little bit of the question of representation, and how is it being a woman in sports? And maybe if you can focus a little bit of telling us the situation in Israel, I'm sure that would be interesting for our audiences.
Sure. So as I was telling about my mother, I didn't mention she's Moroccan. So if we talk about heroes or women heroes, then for sure she's my hero. And just thinking of myself when I was 9, watching the way she just did not agree for that to happen, gave me so much inspiration and taught me so much about the importance of getting my equal opportunity. The situation in Israel has become better and better. I'm talking about, if I put aside for a minute the Paralympic sport and talk about sport in general, there is an amazing project that was once funded by the government, but today is completely independent. It gets government money, but it's more independent, and the name is Athena. And Athena, when it's only began, the main focus was to get more and more girls involved in sport and use the money to make sure that everywhere girls wants to play basketball, soccer, tennis, anything, then they will have the opportunity. And another branch of that project is Athena ambassadors. And I've been an ambassador since day one of this project, going from school to school, talking to girls and boys about the importance of sport, about the special gifts that you can get by participating in sport. And so When we are talking about the lower level, it's becoming better and better, and there are more opportunities. When we are taking it one step higher, there's a lot of problem with budget, with money that does not come into the women, professional women's sport. There's not enough broadcast on television when we compare it to men. And there are many, many fights going on in the last couple of years about money, about broadcasting, about sponsors that are a big part of sport, but you don't see them enough in women's sport. And unfortunately, the situation there is not as I would want it to be. And many of my friends, former players, are trying to get into more higher תפקידים ניהוליים,
roles.
more on the executive level of sport organization in Israel. And good news to end this topic with is that Yael Arad, she was the first medalist for Israel in the Olympic Games. She's a judoka, just nominated the chair of the Olympic Committee in Israel. And that's amazing because she's an athlete, and it's the first time an athlete is actually appointed to that role, and a woman.
First time a woman athlete or an athlete?
An athlete, first of all.
That's
and
great.
Then a woman athlete. So and she's a woman. So for me, that's also amazing. I hope I could walk in her footsteps towards being the chair of the Paralympic Committee in Israel one day.
We hope so too. I'm going to ask one more question. I do want to encourage our viewers, both on Facebook live and here over Zoom, to ask us questions in the chat. We'll promise we'll try to get to all of them. So I want to ask you, Moana, we started this conversation today with kind of the headlines on everyone's newsletter papers, was the threat of the US to boycott the upcoming Olympics in China. And I want to ask you a little bit, even though you did touch it in a big way in your connection to Israel, but we know that success has many parents and failure doesn't always. And what do you think should be the connection between sport and politics? Or maybe if you want to share a little bit of what is your own connection to different governments of Israel in your role as an Olympic athlete. I think we lost Moran for just 1 second. Oh, here you are. Did you hear me?
I lost you. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
We're back.
You were talking about the boycott, and you were talking about, yeah.
I was asking you about your own personal view with about the connection between politics and sports. You mentioned a little bit your own feelings of who you represent and how important it was for you to sing Hatikva in the national games. But I want to ask you on all those aspects that you could share with us between politics and sports on your own experience.
In my experience, when the politicians that are involved in sport know nothing about sport, it makes the sport bad and does not contribute. And if we would see more politicians that have some kind of former athletic career, more of them going into politics. Now in Israel, there is one of the members of the Knesset was a former swimmer and the head of the swimming organization in Israel. And he just organized in the last 6 weeks, I went to the Knesset twice for a big event only dedicated to sport and Olympic and Paralympic sport. So when you see that people come from the right background, they can help promote the right issues. Now and that's why I also appreciate the fact that now Yael Arad, as a former athlete, sits in a political role in the Olympic Committee in Israel, and I think that is the right way. But so many times people that has nothing to do with sport, they know a little bit about money, and sit in a position where they harm sport, unfortunately, and it affects the mental health of athletes. I've been around long enough to be affected by it. Sometimes having the pressure of politicians wanting me to do things that I didn't feel was right for me, and I had to refuse. And the criticism was, showed its face really fast. But for me, the most important is to stay loyal to yourself. I feel lucky to represent Israel. I feel as an ambassador of sport. I love my country, and that's another way for me to say I appreciate you, Israel, for being my home. But I try to stay away as much as I can from hard politics or the conflicts that are far from my world as an athlete, because I want to show through my personal story the beautiful sides of the people of Israel. And the story of Israel should be the story of the people of Israel that represent the country around the world. And sport is a place that needs to be as clean as possible from politics and other issues that can harm it. It should be as pure as possible, for me at least.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I will ask if you want to address specifically that. So when we think of the option to influence things that are happening around the world through sports, like what we just heard today of the U.S. thinking to reject the Olympics, to boycott the Olympics in China, would you as an athlete think that it's not the way that we should be facing those kind of challenges?
I think that when a country acts in a way that is against all principles that we grew on as athletes, and that there is a real how can I say it in English, that there is a real concern about their motivation, how they treat athletes in their country, then yes, we need to raise our hand and say, sorry, but no. As we were trying to take care of athletes during COVID, I sit in two international, very, very important international commissions. One is in the International Paralympic Committee, and the other is I'm the athlete representative inside the World Rowing Organization. And the work that we did through COVID to keep mental health of athletes, to make sure that they can have a secure environment to keep on working and training, and online webinars to make sure that they get what they need from their countries, was so important for us and for all the sport community. And I think that and there have been when Russia was sorry, I'm trying to translate in my head the right the boycott because of the WADA, because of the World Anti-Doping Agency, and everything that happened in Russia, and athletes that were actually running away to other countries. I think that the world should stand against situations like this, because it makes the sport world look bad.
Thank you for voicing on this. And it does seem kind of crazy what you mentioned of sometimes, people that don't come from specific roles are there to represent other people. So just to think that the Minister of Sports and Culture not to be someone that understands or comes from the area of sports and culture and so on. And actually it reminds me that tomorrow we'll have a conversation about Israel's new government, and we'll learn a little bit of who's where in the new government here with the Central Synagogue and with our partners. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I want to, there's two other questions that I want to take from our viewers. There's a question about how can, and you mentioned two panels that you're part of that are international, but people are asking how can women connect across cultures and nations to reject the kind of discrimination that you described? If you have kind of an advice of where can they join to be a part of this?
To be a part of, sorry?
To be a part of going against discriminations against women. That is something that is not on a national level. That is not just in the United States or New York or in Israel. Like, is there international forums? And you mentioned a couple that you're a part of, and people want to know if they can take it.
So first of all, as I mentioned about Access Israel, you can go online and donate, and that will be so appreciated, because I'm telling you that the work that Access Israel is doing is not just about more money for people with disabilities. It's about equal opportunities, and it's not just about physical disabilities, all disabilities. And so whoever wants to donate can go online, and that will be much appreciated. And if you will want to have the CEO, the founder of Access Israel, his name is Yuval Wagner. He was a pilot on the Israeli Air Force and was injured badly, and he's paralyzed from the neck down. And he's the founder of and his father is also in a wheelchair from his army service, which is also, the irony. And I think that will be amazing if you can, I can do the connection. And if you want someone amazing to speak to about what happens in Israel in terms of accessibility and all the work they do, even worldwide, then that's a good person to make the connection with. And about discrimination in general, if you ask me, I'm putting money aside and all of that. I don't know how old all our audience is, but you know where it starts? It starts in kindergarten, in elementary schools. That's where it starts. So if you have the opportunity to build a short, inspirational story about yourself as a woman, about what helped you, I think that even with young people, listening to stories of other women gives you more role models. And that's what we need today. We need role models. And all of you can be role models because all of you have a story to tell. I don't know even one person that cannot find one story which is amazing about herself, about her way, about challenges that she overcome. And I think that's if our young people can get more and more women role models at their near environment, not just on television or far away, something they can touch, relate to, meet them in the afternoon in the kindergarten, in the playground, then it becomes tangible and it makes young women feel they can do it. I do it a lot.
Juan, thank you so much. We'll take that message of we all can be role models and should be, and pass our own messages forward. And we'll thank you for an inspirational hour. And
there was a short question in the chat about basketball, so it's very important to me to say that I still play a little bit in Bet Halochem, as a mother and a professional athlete. And actually, my wife is about to give birth in about 3 weeks. So we're going to be mothers of 3. That's really good. Marrying a woman that you can alternate and you can get some rest in between a birth. That's amazing. So
all
yes,
great advices today.
My heart will always be round, orange, and bouncing.
Moran, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone that joined us here in Zoom and on our Facebook page. Thank you for Rabbi Sarah Berman that helped coordinate that. Thank you, Rabbi Lauren Kaufman and Rabbi Charles Savaro that are here with us. Thank you, Mar, and thank you, Jake, for helping us organize this session. Every month, we'll be meeting here on our stage. You're welcome to come back and join us. Toda rabba, have a great day.